Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From Studio Gem, where excuses never apply. It's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. I want to apologize in advance because we're having some sort of internet fluctuating issue right now. So some of the audio may be a little clippy, motion may be a little herky-jerky. I'm aware of it, and we're waiting for it to resolve itself right now. Welcome back. You know, you can't be a superhuman if you don't take the stewardship of the animals in your care seriously. And I'm not accusing anybody of not doing that. I know everybody loves their animals. Hell, they're like family members. I know people who mourn for years after losing a pet. And it's amazing to me how pets are evolving. I see all these videos of dogs literally understanding and trying to talk. If you haven't seen some of these videos, it's astonishing to me. From being in our care for so many decades now, I don't know if it's selection pressure and we're choosing dogs that can do this or dogs are just picking it up, but dogs are evolving and cats are too. I don't want to leave cats out of the discussion because I know there's a lot of cat lovers out there too. We probably spend a lot of money on our pets because we love them, but it's confusing on what is really good and what is really bad when it comes to pet food today. We have the establishment, the big companies, the Purinas and so on, telling us that they have scientifically designed food that is better for your pet than what they would have gotten if they were wild animals. But that's not living up to its promises these days. We understand now that kibble isn't the best thing to feed your dog, and most likely your cat as well, ongoing. There's linkages to kidney damage and a host of other things. So we take care. We spend extra money on Dr. So-and-so's pet food. We think we're doing the right thing, but are we really? There is actually evidence of illegal ingredients in your pet food, and the FDA knows about it, and they don't do anything about it. And we're going to talk about that today and what you can do to try to navigate around that. Before we do any of that, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods, makers of the Tasty Pastry. The Tasty Pastry started out alternative to a popcorn, so much more. Everybody loves them. I haven't had anybody email me and say they suck. I don't like them. Your kids will love them, and that's a good thing. Less than 1 gram of sugar, 20 grams of high quality protein. If you're a net carb person, 4 to 5 net carbs, and they taste delicious. You will eat them because they taste great. The flavors are amazing. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. Check them out. Use the code SHR10 to save 10% off if you decide to buy them. And now, without further delay, I'll gotta cue some things up here, bring my guests on. And one guest is a returning guest, and that is Chelsea Kent. And we have a new guest joining us on this topic today, and that's Susan Thixton. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
So I want to start off with with Susan because, excuse me, she's done a lot of heavy lifting on the discoveries about what's in pet food. How did this start for you, Susan?
Pet food killed my dog. You know, that's a hard lesson to learn. This was 30 years ago. My dog almost overnight got a tumor on her pelvic bone. And my vet back then knew more about pet food than most veterinarians do today. Told me that her cancer, it was bone cancer, and that her cancer was probably caused by a chemical preservative in the pet food. That chemical preservative is a toxicant, and it's still used today. And he said it was to extend the shelf life of the pet food. And I really didn't even know what shelf life was at this point, but I called the pet food company before the internet and asked them how long the food would stay fresh. And they very proudly told me the food would stay fresh for 25 years. And that was life altering. You know, those words and the loss of my dog was life altering. That vet helped teach me what he knew. With the internet, you gained access to, you know, scientific papers, so forth. Pet owners then wanted me to represent them at regulatory meetings. And so then I started going to regulatory meetings. And then Chelsea started going to regulatory meetings. I like to drag everybody down the rabbit hole with me. But it's astounding. And we keep thinking, well, it can't get any worse. But then we keep finding more. You know, it's all very hidden, all smoke and mirrors. It's disgusting what is allowed in pet food with our tax dollar supported regulatory officials looking the other way. They know it's happening.
Susan, do you think that the reason that these regulatory officials don't seem to care is because in their mind but it's just a dog. You know, it's a dog. It's not a person. You think that's where this comes from?
Not necessarily. I really think it is waste control. Okay. So there's billions with a B of dead animal carcasses. So you think of these big factory farms that raise cattle, poultry, hogs. There's a lot of deaths, animal deaths on these farms. Billions of pounds a year of just dead animal carcasses. Well, those carcasses have to be disposed of somewhere.
Right.
If they go to landfills, if there was disease associated with those carcasses, then that disease could be spread, contaminating waterways, contaminating the soil. So their simple fix is to dispose diseased carcasses and all. There's no discretion. They don't care. They allow all of this material to be disposed of in pet food, and they refuse. The FDA refuses to disclose this to consumers, require manufacturers to disclose it to consumers on pet food labels.
Yeah, so in actuality, they take something that would have cost them money to handle, and they turn it into something that they make money. And it's really disgusting. I want to put up this picture, and then we'll bring Chelsea into this discussion as well. So this is an article you recently published on your website, which is truthaboutfood.com. Illegal, allowed by the FDA, and not disclosed pet owner. What are we looking at in these pictures, Susan?
These are rendering facilities. The majority of the over-top images are from Google Earth Images. You look up their location. Chelsea and I both did this, by the way, found these images. rendering facilities take this animal waste, and these are carcasses, carcass parts. They could be condemned because of disease carcass parts. They could just be animals that died in these factory farms. We have no idea. But you can see these bloody piles literally on the pavement. They're just dumped on the ground. And they take a bulldozer and they push all that material into a pit. They grind it up, they cook it, and then they sell it to pet food companies. And then that pet food contains a picture of a roasted, beautiful roasted chicken or grilled steak on the label.
Right. Now, the FDA doesn't condone this because they list in your article, it says that anything that's considered, putrid, or if it died without being slaughtered, however it died or diseased, they're not supposed to be able to give that to the food manufacturers, Chelsea. But they do. What is the FDA doing about this? Are they just turning a blind eye, or or do they not really know about it? Chelsea, you go ahead and answer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, in 2017, one of the AFCO meetings that Susan and I attended, there was a whole section of the meeting that was about that. And they were talking about how 42.2 million tons annually of just this specific type of waste, so not including all the other waste that goes into pet food, would not be available if they didn't allow that. And ultimately they were trying to identify what else could they do with it, because they know that they said that you shouldn't, but it would cost the government a lot of money if they did something with it besides sell it into pet and agricultural feed. And I just pulled up, this is actually an image from that AFCO meeting. I don't know that you can see it, but I'll read it. And it says, FDA says, we agree with those in industry and the sustainability community that the recycling of human food byproducts to animal feed contributes substantially to the efficacy and sustainability of our food system and is thus a good thing. We have no intention to discourage or disrupt it. And that was the Deputy Commissioner Michael Taylor of the FDA. So while the laws state that you are not allowed to use that, when you go to these meetings, they don't have any intention of changing it.
This is, I mean, how can you hold these people culpable? And I mean, if this is against the law to do, the FDA knows it's happening. They're playing this charade game, like they act like not for it. Oh, we want that to happen, but they don't stop it. Can't someone be punished at the FDA for doing this?
That's the $1 million question. You can't sue. We've investigated this at great lengths. You cannot sue the FDA for their lack of enforcement of law. Unfortunately.
That is absurd. The FDA is supposed to be the firewall. They're supposed to be the enforcement arm. They're supposed to be the ones that stop the bad things from happening. But when they fail to do it, you can't put them on the carpet about it. That's ridiculous.
Correct. Yeah. And
they do that. Sorry, they do that with certain wording. So they will leave enforcement anything open to interpretation. So a lot of the things that you read, like the compliance policy guides, it'll say what their limitations are, but then it says that it's open to the interpretation of the enforcement or inspection officer themselves. So they just take all of the potential responsibility and place it on the next person down.
They play tag team wrestling, okay? Because if you go to the FDA and you go, wait a minute, this is absurd. You are charged, Congress charged you with enforcing federal law, and you're not. And they raise their hands and go, well, it's not us, it's the states. And then you go to the states and go, excuse me, but because a lot of states have these exact same laws specific to animal feed, pet food. And you go to the states and go, wait, you're charged with enforcing state law. Why aren't you doing that? Well, it's not us. It's AFCO, which is a private organization that writes the laws. And so they tag team, and we can't pin anybody down. Nobody wants to be held accountable. And we also can't get members of Congress to hear us. We've all tried again and again and again, and nobody wants to hear us on this. But it's dangerous. This is waste, nasty, nasty waste. And it's not only in pet food, but the frightening thing to consider is the same waste is being fed to livestock animals that become our food.
Yeah, and don't forget, mad cow disease, prions in the brain, which is the equivalent of Guillain-Barré syndrome in humans, occurred because they were feeding the remnants of cows in their feed to cows. And cows are not cannibalistic, they don't. So when you feed cow to cow, the cow gets sick. And it was only after they discovered this that they changed the laws on the feed. Oh, you can't feed dead cows to cows anymore. It was like, oh, okay, we won't do that anymore. But it took cows to get so sick that they had to eradicate hundreds of thousands of heads of cows. And people got sick from eating those cows. If you remember, there were people that were insisting that all cows that were going to be sent to a processing plant be first tested for these prions in the brain. And when they looked at the cost of doing that, they were like, well, let's just stop feeding cows to cows. That's the easiest thing. It's absurd. So let's talk. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There is actually still an allotment for mad cow in ingredients. So if you look up the definition of hydrogenated glycerides, there was an argument at an AFCO meeting about whether or not that should be allowed in agricultural feed because it has a lot of contaminants and is typically sold for soap. And the next meeting that we went to, it had a definition, and it is one of many, many definitions in the AFCO book where it specifically states an allotment for mad cow.
That's terrible. So, okay, so there's a lot of people listening to the show, and they're getting frustrated. They're filled with angst. They're not sure what they're feeding their pet. What can they do? Is it enough just to buy a really expensive boutique pet food, or are you still liable to get the same rendering meats from dead and disease-ridden animals?
It's quality of ingredients. Okay, there are pet foods out there with, if you see the words human grade on the pet food label, ignore claims on their website. There is no regulatory authority that oversees false or misleading claims of pet food websites. But the labels, they do regulate. So if the words human grade are on your pet's food label, that means that pet food contains human edible quality ingredients, supplements, and that it was manufactured in a human food facility to human food safety standards. That's a whole nother can of worms, is these manufacturing facilities for most pet foods are feed facilities, feed grade facilities, and they are held to a much less safety standard than human food. So there's your start. You can ask the manufacturer for if ingredients are human grade, or you can go to a quality independent pet food store like Chelsea's, and who's done all the homework. These small independent pet food stores, these people do a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. They do so much homework on all of their products that they sell. They know them inside and out. So all you got to do is find one of these stores and go into them and get their recommendations.
Now, Chelsea, do you ship around the United States? I just put up a placard with your store's information. Let me see where it is. Here it is.
Thank you.
We have a tracking link. If you go to shrnetwork.biz/heroes, HEROS, because that's the name of your store, correct?
Yes.
Chelsea? So can you sell to people in other states?
Yes. Ironically, I can't ship in my own state, but I can ship to other states and do regularly. I wanted to add for Susan, what I do is develop a relationship with the companies, but even, lesser than that, anybody can call them and you can get an idea of whether or not a company knows what they're talking about just by a simple phone call. So for example, years ago, I called Hill's Science Diet and I talked to the lady that answered the phone for about an hour. One of the questions that I asked her was, where do they get their chicken? And she was like, well, I don't know, but I know the sourcing is good. I go, but how do you know that the sourcing is good if you don't know where it comes from?
Right.
Well,
Right.
I don't know, but I know it's good. Versus I called Carnivore and talked to them about their sourcing, and they went into a long saga about the nightmare that they had to experience in order to get a quality chicken. Like that was obviously an emotional story for them. It was not just, hey, we want to buy chicken, what can you send us? It was something that they were so committed to that they jumped through a zillion different hoops to be able to accommodate their end goal. So you have to ask the right questions, and if you start to hear something that you're like, well, that doesn't sound like you know what you're talking about, or that doesn't sound quite right, then you should ask more questions. But I do feel that you can get an idea of what the company knows about themselves pretty well from those kinds of conversations. And I always say that the most basic standard for me is that the company needs to know more about their own product than I do. And surprisingly, the majority of them don't.
Well, and the other thing is that lying has become such a normal occurrence in business today.
Mhm.
And it happens at all levels. It happens at very high levels of corporate officers lying to people downstream who then use those same lies to assuage people's worries and concerns. But the officer isn't concerned because he's not saying it to that person. You are. And
Mhm.
so he doesn't care that you're going to get in trouble. He just cares. I saw this just recently. We were in Costco, and there was a sweet old woman sampling an electrolyte product. And Elisa, my wife, said, wow, this is so sweet. How much sugar is in it? And she goes, oh, there's 11 grams of sugar, but that's good because that helps hydrate you. And I thought to myself, you don't need sugar to hydrate you. You need minerals and water to hydrate you. But just think about this poor old woman. She said it with such conviction because someone told her. They knew that somebody was going to say, that's a lot of sugar. Well, just tell them it's good for them because it helps hydrate them. That's a blatant lie. And so today, I think calling these companies and talking to them, quite often, you still have to do some more due diligence because they are willing to lie because they know no one's going to what's going to happen to them. You're not going to get some FTC to come down on them and penalize them because they'll say, oh, she was just mistaken the information. We corrected her now. But meanwhile, she's already told that lie to 150,000 people. So it's really sad because the ability to trust on one's word is a very, very vapor-like thing today. And so, I just feel like calling these companies, you're right. You can tell if they really know what they're talking about. They'll give you specifics. They'll talk in specific terms as opposed to, well, we source really good chicken. Like the people who are willing to take that, they're just contributing to the problem because we vote with our dollars. If we can't put people at the FDA in jail for dereliction of duty, well, there's always the fallback. If you don't buy a product, they don't sell it. And if they don't sell it, they have to throw it away. If they have to throw it away, they go out of business. And then they don't murky the water anymore. But really, it comes down to the consumer being educated enough to make these decisions to not buy a product. And that's the hard part, I think, Susan. What do you think?
Well, regarding lies, if a pet food has an image of a roasted chicken or a grilled steak on their label, that's a blatant lie. Yet regulatory doesn't do anything about it.
Really truth in advertising, they would have to have a piece of roadkill on the can.
Absolutely. That would be at least honest. We've said to them, okay, if you're going to allow this, we get that this is a lot of waste, billions of pounds of waste every year, and you don't want to dispose of it, but at least disclose it. Because who's going to buy that if it's on there? But they won't do it because they know what the result's going to be. Nobody's going to buy it.
My father and I used to watch Sanford & Son when I was really young. And there was a line where Fred Sanford came home from the grocery store and he got a turkey for Thanksgiving and he only paid $1 for it. And Lamont looked at him and said, "You got that turkey for $1?" And he goes, yeah. He goes, "Why was it so cheap?" He said, "Because it died before they could kill it." But this is what we're feeding our pets. They're feeding things to pets that died. They died of diseases and God knows what else before they could actually be killed. We have to take a break. But when we come back, I want to talk about something else that's very troublesome. Also, another article on Susan's website. Again, Susan's website is, I'll put it back up here, truthaboutpetfood.com. Everybody who owns a pet should go to this website. And if you are worried about trying to find a good product for your dog, Chelsea has already done all the investigating for you. You can go to shrnetwork.biz/heroes to learn more about her offerings. We're going to take one quick commercial break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/MyPillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/White Oak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 10% off your entire first order. You already know that Magnesium Breakthrough is the single best magnesium supplement in the world and quite possibly the most popular right now. So Bioptimizers doesn't have to do anything special to get your business, but they are. Black Friday starts now and runs the entire month of November. They're also giving away over $200 worth of free gifts. Bioptimizers is a legacy advertiser on this show and gives us great support to keep bringing you great content. And now they're rewarding our audience directly. Throughout the entire month of November, go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10, not only to get a great discount, but to get $200 worth of free gifts as well. And while we all know that Magnesium Breakthrough is the single best magnesium supplement in the world, Bioptimizers stands behind all their products with a full refund up to 1 year after purchase. No questions asked. Go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10 today. Don't waste another minute.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. Don't hate us because we feel good.
Welcome back. I just want to mention that Jenny Harris from White Oak Pastures is coming on next week to dispute the claim made in a recent article that's gone viral by The Economist that beef should be treated like coal, that we should be looking to eliminate beef production because of its greenhouse gas production. And White Oak Pastures and a handful of other farms who are now not only doing sustainable but regenerative farming, they have actually a negative carbon footprint. They are more gentle to the planet than growing soy. And so we're going to be talking about this next week because this propaganda that beef is bad for the planet is so, if you look at the information, we eat this much beef compared to vegetables and fruits and dairy. It's so much smaller than those other three categories, but yet beef is destroying the planet. It's all to push this fake meat. And by the way, the Impossible Burger is paying $2 million. Every dollar in sales, it costs them $1.25. And it's less than 1% of the sales in the United States today. It's tanking. Nobody wants this stuff, but they want us to eat it for whatever reason. So we're going to talk to Jenny Harris next week, and we're going to dispel this myth that beef is destroying the planet. Okay, getting back to the subject. Susan Thixton has an article on her website. I'm going to put this up real quick. What do 10 years of recall tell us? And this article was actually triggered, I want to say, by a press release that went around indicating that there was a dog food recall in Europe due to antibiotic-resistant bacteria, including superbugs found in hospital patients. But this was in the emerging raw food movement because we have a lot of companies now that are producing raw foods for dogs and cats and packaging it. And so they were trying to scare people away from raw food back over to Kibble, which we already know killed dogs and cats for decades. And the reality is, to talk about the reality of recalls, Susan, for a second.
I went into the FDA website, their enforcement reports, and I looked up every recall over the past 10 years. And those enforcement reports give data on how many pounds of pet food that were recalled. And over the past 10 years, 98% of all recalls for a pathogenic bacteria, Salmonella, E. coli. It's what the misleading article from Europe, what they were alluding to. was pathogenic bacterias, antibiotic resistant, so forth. But 98% of all recalls over the past 10 years for pathogenic bacteria has been from dry pet food, kibble pet foods, not raw pet foods. Yet, I think over the past 10 years, there have been maybe 2 human illnesses linked to handling of a raw pet food. There have been more than 40 human illnesses linked to handling a kibble pet food, pathogenic bacteria, again, both. The FDA has multiple articles warning pet owners about the dangers of raw pet food, and they have no warnings about the dangers of kibble pet food for pathogenic bacteria. So there is a blatant bias. We've had it here for several years. In Europe, that was the first big thing that I noticed in Europe of them starting this same marketing anti-raw campaign in Europe. So, but if you look at the statistics, it's raw pet food is not nearly as dangerous as they claim it to be.
So the FDA is supposed to be an agency that has a firewall to protect people, and in this case, their pets. But it's clear that they're colluding with manufacturers of products because they do things that are not in the pet's best interest or the human best interest. Chelsea, what is it? Is it clearly a financial relationship they have with industry, or is there something else brewing here?
I definitely think that there's a financial aspect to it, and the smaller companies that source well don't have the money for lobbyists like the big companies do. And the lobbyists for the big companies are on the regulatory boards. In some cases, they take up more space, more seats than the regulators themselves. So I do think that there is an aspect of that. I think if you step back and look at it, in order to make a high heat processed product, you can buy trash and you can sterilize it and make it into a slurry and do all these things to it so that it pops out a pellet that's moderately clean, maybe not of contaminants, but you got out a lot of stuff through the high heat cooking process, even if you added some other things back in. You can't do that with a fresh food and get away with it. Like if you're not sterilizing it and you're not making it into a slurry where people can actually see the ingredients in a whole fresh food, then you have to buy real ingredients. So the expense of making a fresh food is so much higher to these manufacturers that it makes it a lot less interesting to be willing to do that. So if you actually look at the history of recalls and also CDC outbreaks too, there's been 3 separate times where the CDC had to get involved because so many humans were getting sick from touching kibble pet foods, some of the most popular brands that are out there. And as far as I've seen, they've never done a specific sampling assignment for pathogens in kibble products. And the law actually states that it's not considered to be positive unless at least multiple samples out of 10 test positive with a kibble. Whereas they have done raw food sampling assignments looking for pathogens, and they are supposed to gather a minimum of 6 of the same product with the same expiration date at the same time and test all of them. I've had product pulled from my own store for these pathogen assignments, and they only pulled 1. So they are not adhering to their own guidelines. And then they're not adhering to federal law of when a product is considered adulterated or dangerous. So they're supposed to identify for sure that it's dangerous by seeing exactly what's in there and how much of it, and validating that that's a concern. And they don't do that with raw food. They're like, oh no, we found something that's maybe dangerous and you have to recall. So with 98% of recalls for pathogens being from Kibble, where they have hardly been looked at, and there's not even enough inspectors to look at very many of them relative to how much is out there, compared to, less than 2% being raw food when they've specifically targeted it. It's obviously a waste of money for them at this point.
Right.
They basically validated that it's not as big of a concern as they're making it out to be.
And they've even cheated. They've even cheated, Carl, to get their positive in a raw pet food. In Chelsea State, the Colorado Department of Agriculture, and this raw pet food company went out of business because they were hit so many times. They took a sample of a raw frozen pet food from a pet food store, and instead of following protocol and putting that frozen product in a cooler, maintaining temperature control, they put this raw pet food on the seat of their car in July and transported it to the lab. So they were setting the stage.
This is
for, I mean, and that's just one of many examples.
If you're a pet owner and you're watching this show right now and you're not disgusted, not outraged, that the people are doing things that are hurting your pet. If I came to your house and I punched your dog in the face, he'd probably bite me, but you would be pissed off at me. People need to start getting pissed off about this. Something has to change here. And I'll tell you what the real problem is. Let me address one thing real quick. Craig Hollander, we're having some internet connectivity issues, so you may hear some voices breaking up. I made an announcement at the beginning of the show. Very sorry. But the podcast is solid. There's no problems with the audio podcast. Let me give you an analogy that I've used over and over again when we talked about the FDA here on this show. How readily would your local police department want to put crack dealers out of business if the crack dealers funded their paychecks? And think about that. I'm a police officer. I got a family. I got a mortgage, and I get a paycheck every month. I depend on it. But I know that if I put all the crack dealers in town out of business, my paycheck stops. I'm out of work. That's the FDA. The FDA will never be honest. The FDA will never protect people. We see this right now with vaccines. The FDA will never be honest, will never protect the people of this country, as long as the big pharma, big food are paying them. Every time you submit a product, every time you have an interaction with an FDA, $100,000, $500,000, they're writing these checks. Our tax dollars should fund the FDA, not the companies that they provide oversight to. Until that happens, be ready for the FDA to F you, F your pet, F everybody, because they don't care. And don't forget, there's a revolving door. You work for the FDA 5, 6, 7 years, and then you end up going upstream to some big pharmaceutical company, big food company, as an officer of their company with $250,000 a year paycheck. This is. I know it's not treasonous, but it's at that level of criminality, in my humble opinion. And we suffer. People die because medications are approved and then recalled, because the FDA doesn't have the ability to do their own science and determine whether or not, Vioxx was really a good thing to approve. Pfizer was called on the carpet in 2008 for lying about a vaccine. And here we are again. They're asking the government, the FDA, the FDA is asking on behalf of Pfizer to a federal court right now to allow Pfizer till 2076 to provide all of the data that shows that their vaccine is safe and effective. 2076. How many people are going to take that vaccine and get hurt by it? The FDA sucks, and it really needs to be dismantled and start over again, and they should only run on tax dollars. They should be funded by our tax dollars, so they belong to the people and not the companies that they provide oversight to. Is that too strong of a comment?
Not at all. And the division that oversees pet food and animal food of the FDA is called the Center for Veterinary Medicine. And if you think the FDA as a whole was bad, the CVM, Center for Veterinary Medicine, is like tenfold worse.
Sure, because it's dogs and cats. Dogs and cats aren't filing complaints, and their owners are too busy with their lives and their children and school and soccer and everything else to pay attention to, the dog doesn't look good anymore. What's going on? And then they get taken to a vet, and the vet says, oh, yeah, your dog has got diabetes. You got to put him on insulin. Oh, your dog has got cancer. The number one killer of Labrador retrievers and golden retrievers today is cancer. Number one. And all of these dogs are insulin resistant today. So many dogs are insulin resistant because dogs were never designed to eat that much carbohydrates. Craig Hollander made this comment earlier, and I'm putting it back up about dogs are primarily carnivores. Foods that they eat, they eat the organ meat. They eat everything when they I saw this. I'm a hunter, and when I would find a deer that had been run down by coyotes, they eat the offal. They eat everything inside here: the entrails, the stomach, the spleen, the liver. They don't eat the hams that we want, the steak. They eat all that first. The reality is that we think we're smarter than nature. Look at formula versus breast milk. My mother raised me on formula because the doctor told it was better than breast milk. Are you kidding me? Breast milk is the result of millions of years of evolution, and formula is crap. And the same is true of pet foods in general. Do you know, and I may have told this last time Chelsea was on the show, but it needs repeating. The bear at the San Diego Zoo developed heart failure. The bear at the San Diego Zoo eats bear chow. He doesn't eat what bears eat in the wild. The same things that are killing the pet owners, they're killing the dogs. It's the horrible nutrition that we've found a way to this day and age. Really is. Very, very sad. I want to talk about one other thing before we take a break and why it's so important that these types of animal remnants don't find their way into our pet foods. Talk about the pentobarbital and dog food, please, Susan.
Pentobarbital is a drug that they use to euthanize animals. So if your pet, has reached its expiration date and you have to put them down, pentobarbital is the drug that they use. Livestock animals, not often cattle, but horses are often euthanized with pentobarbital. There have been more than 90 million pounds of pet food recalled because it contained pentobarbital, the drug used to euthanize animals. So that means...
Which means that those euthanized animals, which were not considered food by the FDA, by the way, were finding their way into these pet food manufacturers.
Absolutely. The FDA director, the director of the Center for Veterinary Medicine, Dr. Stephen Solomon, and I filed a Freedom of Information Act request for his speech to industry. He told industry that, quote, pentobarbital in pet food is more pervasive than they thought. But all 92 million pounds were recalled because of the actions of two pet owners. One was a pet owner in Seattle, Washington. One of her little dogs died from eating a pentobarbital contaminated pet food. She had a necropsy done on her dog, confirmed that the food in the little dog's stomach was contaminated. A television station journalist in Washington, D.C., saw the news report, saw the recall for pentobarbital, and she wondered, do more pet foods contain pentobarbital? She tested 62 cans, and 9 of 62 tested positive for pentobarbital. That's a huge portion, and that resulted in more recalls. These weren't found because FDA or state officials are out there going, wow, this is
doing
very
their job.
deadly.
Yeah, they were doing their job.
That's right. It was found because pet owners did their research. 45% of all recalls over the past 10 years were only brought to light. Those foods were only recalled because a pet owner's dog died and they did something about it.
This is so sad. They don't do their job. They've never done their job. Do you know what the first drug the FDA ever approved was? Anybody remember thalidomide?
Yeah.
That was at the inception of the FDA. That was the first drug they approved. And look at all the thalidomide babies out there. Now the FDA will defend themselves and say, "Well, we didn't approve it for pregnant women." Well, that's what it was for. It was for nausea, right? I think it was given for nausea, not to bring on. It was given for nausea, but that was the first drug they ever approved. The FDA doesn't have the scientific brain power to review the science that's being submitted to them. They don't have the scientific brain power to reproduce using the types of study processes that are done in the first place on the drugs that they approve. They don't reproduce them. They don't go, well, we'll try. Let's see if our outcome is the same as yours. They don't do anything. They rubber stamp. And who do you think they're rubber stamping when companies are writing them here's $2 million for the approval of this drug. Here's $2 million. Oh, yeah, let's go to dinner Wednesday night and talk about this. This is such a travesty because there are 880,000 people a year, according to the CDC's own statistics, die every year by taking drugs the way they were prescribed. Where is the FDA? 880,000 people a year. That's pretty significant considering like how many people we lost in the pandemic. You would think that there would be a firestorm going on. We got to fix this. Why are people dying from taking drugs that were prescribed to them? This is a travesty. The FDA has needed the building needs to be raised. Everybody needs to be fired. And they need to just start over again because it is a cesspool there. It is. And I'm not saying that just. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, I know that you guys have you gals, I'm sorry, have a fundraiser that you're supporting. And we're going to talk about that with the audience when we come back. How's that sound?
Awesome.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Dogs should be powered by fat and protein, not carbs. That's why Visionary Pet makes low-carb, ketogenic dog food for dogs of all breeds and life stages. From kibble to freeze-dried and even low-carb treats, all Visionary Pet recipes are very low-carb, ketogenic, and made with 100% real meat protein. Shop now and use code SHR for 20% off your first order today. Your dog deserves the lifelong benefits of optimal nutrition. Make the switch to Visionary and see why smart dogs eat carbs.
Have you been struggling to achieve results in the gym? Trouble sleeping through the night? Overwhelmed with stress or anxiety? Look no further than Infiniwell supplements. They have designed products to address specific needs like muscle growth, hormone balance, sleep, and anxiety from the first use. Infiniwell helps you live well. Go to shrnetwork.biz/bewell, that's BEWELL, and use code SHR20 and start living well today. Every day, there's a new wellness trend. Eat that, do this, avoid those. How do you know where to start or who to trust? Inside Tracker helps you cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, your DNA, your lifestyle, and your fitness tracker to provide you with a science-backed trackable action plan on how to live, age, and perform better. Personalized one-size-fits-one recommendations to help optimize you. For a limited time, Inside Tracker is offering Superhuman Radio listeners 25% off the entire store. Go to shrnetwork.biz/inside tracker, INSIDETRACKER, to save 25% off. Change begins on the inside. Redcon One's new BAR bar is the ultimate soft-baked protein-packed snack bar, powered by peanut butter. Perfect for while on the go to help curb hunger or sneaky sweet tooth cravings. 20 grams of protein. Use as a meal replacement bar or when you're in need of a high-protein snack. Eat a Redcon 1 bar as a midday snack or for fuel before an intense training session. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Redcon1 and use the code SHR25 and save 25% off these delicious bars today. You already know that Magnesium Breakthrough is the single best magnesium supplement in the world and quite possibly the most popular right now. So Bioptimizers doesn't have to do anything special to get your business, but they are. Black Friday starts now and runs the entire month of November. They're also giving away over $200 worth of free gifts. Bioptimizers is a legacy advertiser on this show and gives us great support to keep bringing you great content. And now they're rewarding our audience directly. Throughout the entire month of November, go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10, not only to get a great discount, but to get $200 worth of free gifts as well. And while we all know that Magnesium Breakthrough is the single best magnesium supplement in the world, Bioptimizers stands behind all their products with a full refund up to 1 year after purchase, no questions asked. Go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10 today. Don't waste another minute.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
Welcome back. We're talking with Susan Thixton and Chelsea Kent. These are patron saints of pets. I'm going to write the Pope for you girls. So you need to need to be sanctified, sainthood. No, really, nobody's helping pets. You know, they don't argue. They come home. They love you no matter how hard of a day they've had because of the pain in their body, because of the foods that we're feeding them, and we're feeding them well-meaningly. You know, we're not giving. Everybody I know loves their pet. Nobody hates their pet. People who hate their pets don't have pets, and it's just a travesty. So let's talk a little bit about this fundraiser that's going on right now.
Yeah. So as you were saying earlier, the best way that we can make a change in the industry is to not buy the products that are doing the things that we don't support, which means buying the products that are doing the things that we do support. So obviously, the more that are out there, the better, regardless of competition. Buying from regenerative farms, getting whole fresh foods, getting things that are actually human grade, getting things that are laboratory validated regarding the claims that they make. All of those things are obviously really important to the end user, regardless of whether or not you know the details of them. So there recently was a lawsuit that I'm not really going to bother with all of the details about that right now, except to say that if you really read through everything, you can see that there was a lot of corruption involved, and that ultimately it put 25 independent Amish farmers in the state of Pennsylvania under an injunction where they are currently not allowed to sell to anybody except one company, even though they don't have any contracts or anything requiring them to do so, but that company is not buying. So currently these farmers, these 25 or more Amish families, they don't have any ability to have any income. They don't have the ability to continue to feed their animals. You know, if there's not stuff going out, there can't be money coming in. There's just not a whole lot of options for them at the moment. I also had one person ask me why they can't sell the animals. And just taking goats, one of the big issues right now is that there are over 1,800 milk goats that they have. And it's not really possible for them to be selling off those animals because within one state, you can sell raw goat milk to members that own shares of the goat, but you can't actually sell that milk out of state. So there's not enough people to support continuing purchasing things within state. So they can't even sell their animals. So if they don't get some money while this injunction is getting resolved, they're going to have to unnecessarily slaughter all of these herds of animals. And the families themselves are also going to be suffering. So we are holding a fundraiser in an attempt to try and just basically subsidize them for the period of time that it takes for this case to get reviewed and to get this injunction lifted. So it's on GoFundMe, and it's titled #IStandWithCure, which is KURE.
There it is. #IStandWithCure, KURE. And also, the actual GoFundMe link is kind of complicated, so it's probably best to use the #IStandWithCure to get there. But it's GoFundMe. It's gofund.me/lowercase AA, the number 2, lowercase AB, the number 1, lowercase D, the number 5. You could just rewind that and play it again and again. How much money do we need for these kind folks?
We have it set at $55,000, and if they end up not needing that much, then we will shut it off. And we are crossing our fingers that they don't need more, and that the courts actually get on this sooner rather than later.
So Gary Oakes was my Mennonite farmer that I used to buy milk from when my children were still in school. I've been drinking raw and pasteurized milk for well over 20 years now. Raised my kids on it. They never got sick when everybody else in school got sick. So Gary Oakes, who doesn't sell milk anymore, we were part of a cow share program. And Northern Kentucky is considered Cincinnati. In fact, the Cincinnati airport is in Northern Kentucky. Susan, you know this because you've lived here. And so Gary Oakes had customers in Northern Kentucky, cow share customers. So he went up to Northern Kentucky to deliver milk one day. And this was obviously planned. They knew it. The DEA, the Drug Enforcement, they pounced on him. This was probably around 2000. So you left in 2000, right, Susan? I think this was around 2005. They arrested him. They handcuffed him. They took him to jail because they said he was selling raw milk in the Cincinnati area illegally. He was in Northern Kentucky. And these were people who paid. We paid $55 a month. And we got like 5 gallons of milk. We were part of a share program. We had to buy at the beginning. And they arrested him for selling milk. The poor man ended up with legal bills that he had to sell his farm. Mm-hmm. Now, okay, so that's the one side, right? Then the other side is Vioxx killed 55,000 people. Nobody went to jail. They lied about the science. Nobody went to jail. There's evidence right now that Pfizer's lying about the science of this vaccine right now. In fact, I heard, and so I could be wrong, that some high-level person at Pfizer just stepped down because of charges of fraud, but the media didn't pick it up. They're not covering it. The equity in people today, the elite, they could kill people. No big deal. It's okay. And the other guy's selling milk, raw milk to 12 people in Northern Kentucky, and the DEA pounces on him and arrests him. Mm-hmm. This doesn't enrage people. I think our country is kind of a powder keg right now anyway. But it's just time for a pendulum to swing back. And getting back to pet food. I mean, this is horrible that you're feeding your dog and your cat food that you're paying good money for, thinking it's good food for them, and it's killing them slowly. Imagine all the dogs that probably died from the pentobarbital that people didn't know why their dog died because it was an old dog. Oh, well, he was 12 years old. I guess that's it. I mean, this is disgusting. It's a dereliction of duty. The FDA needs to be punished. I would love for someone in my audience to do this. You do this, and I'll have you on the show. It's going to take you a while to do it. Go back and look at every drug the FDA recalled, and look at what the events that led up to the recall, the deaths, the born with birth defects, all that, and let's put a life toll. How many people have died because of the FDA approval that we all think means something since its inception? Start with the Thalidomide babies and work your way forward. Go to Vioxx. We know there's 55,000 right there. How many people have died because of the FDA's inaction, inability to do their job, incompetence, whatever you want to call it, corruption, whatever it is. What's the actual value of life that has been lost? And then let's add pets to that thing. Let's see if anybody cares. The FDA may be responsible for more deaths than any other sinister regime in our history. But nobody gives a shit. They don't.
I actually did a similar thing with consumer affairs reviews on some of the big companies, and we did more than just one. But as an example, on the Purina page for consumer affairs, I just had some of my employees tally up deaths and illnesses that were reported just there. And there are thousands of pages on there, and we made it through about 110 pages, and we had thousands of illnesses and thousands of deaths that were reported. And the majority of them were very well defined. Like, for example, I remember one of them where the woman said that she had gotten a new bag of dog food. She had 8 dogs. They all slept in kennels in the garage, and she fed them dinner, put them up for the night, got up in the morning, and all 8 of them were dead. So it's not like it could have been something else where it was an isolated incident.
Right. Let's wrap this show up with something positive from both of you. We'll start with Susan because she's had a chance to rest there for a little while.
I try not to be positive.
It's such a letdown, right? No, but really, Susan, so people who listen to the show, they're afraid. They don't want to hurt their pets. What should they do?
Educate yourself, read more, go to Truth About Pet Food, follow Dr. Karen Becker, Rodney Habib, follow Chelsea. You have to learn what the lies are before you can recognize them. But you'll progress pretty quickly. It doesn't take, a long time. Keep asking questions, just like what Chelsea said. Have a conversation with your pet food company, and if they give you the standard, no answers, find another pet food. If you ask a very direct question, ask them if ingredients, this is a perfect start. Are ingredients human edible? Are the supplements human edible? And what is the country of origin of all ingredients? And if they don't answer, if they kind of skirt and, we buy everything quality, if they don't answer your question, find another pet food that will. They're out there. There are good companies out there.
How about you, Chelsea? What do you want to tell the audience?
Well, you absolutely do have the ability to make a difference, and that can be as simple as, participating in the regulation. Even just understanding it is going to make you make different choices so that you make a difference. You can support the companies that are doing well. This GoFundMe is a perfect example of how that can be done. Supporting regenerative farmers in any way that you can, supporting the people that are making a product because they are ethical and they want to do it, not because they just want to make money. And also, I know most people still believe that you shouldn't rotate your pet's food because it'll make them sick. I always tell people in regards to that, if I told you that I could only eat macaroni and cheese and anything else made me sick, you would tell me that I need to see a specialist. You would not view that as a sign of health because it is a sign of disease. Your pet should be able to rotate. And in doing that, you also have the ability to support multiple awesome ethical companies and get the best of a variety of different things. So you don't even have to make a single decision. I think that a lot of people stress about, well, what am I going to buy? What am I going to support? Well, spread your options out and support what you believe in, but make sure that you understand what you believe to be true. Don't just listen to a rep and be like, sounds good. I had a difference.
I had a couple veterinarians on the show in 2020, and I thought I thought their mission was anti-kibble, because my mission is anti-kibble. I know that kibble is not good for pets. It's just not. It's good for manufacturers. Like you said, 25-year shelf life. There's so many benefits to it for the manufacturers, but it's not for dogs, cats. It's not. And when they got on here, they were starting to lean towards, kibble. And I said, well, I don't like kibble. I don't think it's good. And especially, a lot of these kibbles, because there's no transparency in labeling in pet food. And like, there's a lot of dogs developing type 2 diabetes and diseases associated with that. And a lot of these pet foods are 50%, 60% carbohydrates, but you can't find that. And if it says grain-free, it doesn't mean that it's carb-free. And so one of the vets said to me, well, domesticated dogs have evolved to eating kibble. And I didn't, I'm not the kind of host that's going to call bullshit on a guest. I'm not going to make them feel uncomfortable. My audience are critical thinkers. They know I'm thinking to myself bullshit. They're probably saying it to themselves as well. But I just let them go on. And he said, domesticated dogs have evolved. They need those carbs. And because I use wolves don't eat corn. No farmer ever came out in the morning and said, those damn wolves ate all my corn. They don't. They just don't. And he said, well, domesticated dogs have evolved. And wait a minute, we've only been feeding kibble for 60 years. How could they have evolved in 60 years to be this carbohydrate, moisture-free, pellet food? This is ridiculous. You obviously don't understand evolution, I was thinking to myself. But I let him go. I let him off the hook. I don't like kibble. I think it's a big mistake for people to feed. And think about what Chelsea just said. Would you eat macaroni and cheese every single day? Well, your dog is eating that kibble every single day. Come on. Some morsel of common sense in your brain has to go, gee, don't they need something else besides kibble? So.
Relate it to children as well. Like if you decided to only feed your child total cereal for 60 years, would you expect them to be healthy at the end of 60 years?
No, in fact, they'll probably be dead at 40.
Exactly.
Be dead at 40. So, yeah.
They're not going to evolve to eat cereal.
Right, exactly. All of a sudden, oh, yeah, all kids eat cereal now. One other thing I want to put up here is Chelsea's website, shrnetwork.biz/heroes. There's a link to it. You can go there and learn more about the types of foods that she offers and promotes, and she's done all the heavy lifting for you. Thank you so much for being on the show today. This is fascinating stuff.
Thank you.
And I can't wait for the day where we do another show because the FDA has been shut down.
Yep.
They you know what? They could be shut down tomorrow and no additional lives would be lost.
Agreed.
No additional lives would be lost because people know what to do for themselves. The reality is, except when
invite them to come on. Invite the Center for Veterinary Medicine to come on your show. We'll help you with questions.
I would need someone to come on because I'm not as knowledgeable about this area. I would need you or Chelsea to come on and debate that.
Oh, we jump at the chance.
Yep.
Okay, Elisa, are you listening to that? We need somebody from the FDA's, what is it called?
Center for Veterinary Medicine.
Center for Veterinary Medicine to come on and let's have a debate. I would love that. I'll try to do that, although I don't think they're going to want to do it.
No.
Just a hunch. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Okay, that's it for today. And I have a good show tomorrow. Usually I'm off on Fridays, but I'm working tomorrow, so hope you can join. Share this show, please. A lot of people have dogs and cats. I actually commented. There was a YouTube video of someone with like a shaker bottle where half of it was kibble and half of it was water, and it had a little pop-up bowl, and they were showing how you could feed your pet on the run. And I said, kibble is horrible for pets. And somebody actually said, what's kibble? There's a lot of people out there that don't understand any of this. They just don't get it. We need to enlighten people to at least think more. Maybe not change, but at least start thinking and questioning about what they're feeding their pets. All right, see you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Thanks for being here today.